This is a Rogue Media Network podcast.
Welcome to Purpose-Driven Sobriety. Thank you for joining the Purpose-Driven Sobriety podcast. My name is Christine, and I'm an alcoholic. First of all, I want to thank, I've got Daniel on the show today, but I want to thank, and I'm going to tell Daniel this story real fast. The sponsor of this show is my husband, who was a victim of mine. When we were on a road trip, I took a picture. We were driving, and I looked over at him, and he looked just so handsome, and so I took a picture of him driving, right? Well, so I got to thinking, which when I have too much time on my hands, and I get to thinking, that's usually not a good thing. My daughter is an amazing photographer and is great at Photoshop, and so I texted the photograph to her, and I said, could you make him a woman? And she said, what? And I said, no, just go with me on this. And so I posted on Facebook. I said, okay, look at this beautiful picture of my husband. Anybody want to see him as a woman? And I said, if you want to see it, then you have to sponsor, you have to donate to the Purpose-Driven Sobriety podcast so I could pay for episodes. And so I had people donating money. And then I released the picture of my husband as a woman with his permission, okay? He wasn't thrilled about it, but he knew he couldn't say no. So to my husband, Rick Cohen, I love you so much. So anyway, I have Daniel on the show today, and Daniel, first of all, welcome so much. Thank you so much for agreeing to sit down and talk to me. It was kind of a spur of the moment kind of thing, kind of a whirlwind. I met Daniel on the intraweb on Facebook, and I say it all the time. There are some really great resources online and on social media. You just kind of just like with in-person groups, which I believe that's where the magic is for the most part. But there are online groups and stuff too that you can get into. And so I met Daniel there, and he agreed to come on and share his experience, strength, and hope with us. So thank you and welcome.
Well, thank you very much for having me, and I appreciate the opportunity. You're right. There are a lot of good resources on there, and it really depends on what you're looking for. And, I looked a long time for a lot of the wrong reasons. And, I'm just blessed to have found you guys' page, and, being able to share with others, I think is the top priority of mine, because, I know the pain and I know the struggle of addiction and alcoholism. And, so being able to share that, I know it's helpful. It helped me in the times when I needed it. So I'm just glad to be a part of something bigger.
Oh, 100%. Yep. That's that 12th step. You can't keep it if you don't give it away. So Daniel, without further ado, why don't you just share with me what it was like, what happened, and what you're like now?
Okay. So what it was like, growing up, I don't think I remember a time when there wasn't alcohol around. My parents were alcoholics. I grew up in an alcoholic household. It wasn't uncommon to have, friends and family members over for parties and card games and things like that. And so there was always alcohol involved. Most of the time, I saw it as kind of normalized. I mean, it was always around, and that was the normal occasion. So I didn't think anything was that big of a deal, except for, the bad times. A lot of fighting, a lot of arguing, parents splitting up and then getting back together and things like that. And, for me growing up as a child, it was conflicted, because usually the good times were associated with the alcohol. That's when I got most of the attention from them, good, bad, or indifferent. And, up until, later years. And so, like I said, it was kind of normalized, and as I grew up, I found that that was where I got a lot of the comfort from, finding the people, places, and things that kind of catered to that atmosphere.
Now, were you an only child?
I was the only child in the house. I mean, I have other brothers and sisters, but they were older.
Oh, okay.
And so, so it was just me. Yeah.
I gotcha.
So, like I said, it being normalized for me, I didn't see, that it was a problem, and I carried that with me for a long time. I found comfort, I found solace just in, the people, places, and things that catered to that. And until I started realizing that that's what I needed for acceptance was to find those groups because I just felt awkward in other situations.
Mm.
I know a lot of times, with like with my grandmother and a couple of my other brothers with church and things like that, but I just always felt out of place unless I was drinking. And so, that's really kind of where it started. Um, the drinking kind of led up to, a lot of other drug use, and that's where, a lot of my legal troubles came in. The first time that I was kind of led towards any type of program of recovery was by a probation officer. And, the probation officer suggested that, didn't suggest, demanded that I go to Alcoholics Anonymous. And the closest I got to the door was the parking lot. I pulled up in the parking lot and this Alcoholics Anonymous thing, oh, I don't need that. It wasn't a problem for me. So I didn't go. I didn't embrace what now I have found to be a staple in my life.
Mm.
Um, so through several trips through prison, and I've been to prison 4 times. I've done 11 calendars on many different crimes that were all really fueled by alcohol and drugs. And again, it was a search for something else. It was a search for acceptance and not wanting to be alone anymore. And those were the types of people that I were finding that I could be accepted by just by using or drinking because that's what I knew.
Mm.
So I mean that's kind of the long and the short of it. With my drinking kind of spiraled in several different ways. I'd lost a brother to suicide. And it seemed like every time I went through a major loss in my life, when I lost my brother to suicide in 1999, and I really got out there, that was more drug fueled, and ended up doing a prison stay. Um, I got out of prison with the whole intent of being clean and being sober. But again, I didn't embrace any program of action. I didn't embrace any sober environment or good support system. And then about 2 years after that, I'd lost my mother to an alcoholic death. And even seeing the effects of that wasn't enough to tell me that I was on the wrong path. I still pursued alcohol. I still pursued drugs, and usually it was an effort to quiet those feelings or to quiet those fears of being lost and alone. And so I think that was probably when I lost my mother. That was the most significant loss in my life, and ended up doing another prison stay over that. I got a 5-year sentence over that due to drugs, stolen cars, and just the whole gamut of drug fueled crime sprees and things like that. And so, but again, I wasn't to that point of desperation where I felt that I had the problem. I could figure it out on my own, and as long as I surrounded myself with if this person wasn't using, then I didn't have to use, or if that person wasn't drinking, then I didn't have to drink. But it was always a fear of mine. The fear of abandonment really comes up in my story, due to the alcoholic background of my family, and so whenever there was a loss in my life, and that's where the main relapses really came in. Um, Shortly after my mom died, again, I caught another prison case, and I came out again with the full intent of being clean and sober, and that didn't last very long. I got back involved in drinking and drugs again, and it's always been a downward spiral. So 4 prison stays later, and 11 calendar years. This last time, I've only been out of prison a month now, a little over a month, and but this time I had hit a point of absolute desperation. What led up to that was another drinking bout with a person that I was with, and some other traumatic events, and by this point I had been clean off drugs for about 17 years, but I was still drinking a lot. And life happens. We know this. Life on life's terms, right? But as life happens, there was just a snowball of things happen that were just overwhelming, and of course, my pride told me that I'm okay. I can do this. I can handle this. I've been clean for 17 years. And so something in my mind, something in my alcoholic addicted mind told me that it would be okay this time to pick the drugs back up. And I did. And, within a year and a half, I was sitting back in prison again. I tried to find every loophole that I could in the court system and, applied for mental health court and I got it, which was probably the worst thing I could have done because it really just strengthened this invincibility feeling in me that no matter what I do, they're just going to put me back out on the street. I think the
Oh,
judge gave me,
wow. Whoa,
you
wow.
know, the
What a
yeah,
way to put that. Hang on,
the
let's pause right there. That is, you
sure,
know
yeah,
what, Daniel, that is so profound that you have come to that realization. I mean, that's just I don't know why that just hit me. It's like you see yourself. It's like they're going to allow me to use whatever crutches I can, you saw that as a crutch, and that self-awareness is something that took me so long to to get. That's profound. Wow, good on you, man. Dang. Wow. Okay,
well,
I'm sorry. That was just
and
profound.
no, and that's fine, and it really did though. It fueled me to an extent. Like I said, I got to the point of I almost felt invincible in doing the destructive behavior and the suicide that we slowly are committing with ourselves,
Mhm.
and every time we use,
Mhm.
it just intensified that in knowing that I can screw up again, and the judge is going to turn around and put me back on the street. They gave me, I think she gave me 6 or 7 chances at sobriety, at doing the right thing and doing the UAs and staying clean and doing court and all this stuff. And it seemed like every time it was just every time I'd go to court, I'd like, yeah, I did it again. They're just going to put me back out on the street Monday. And so, every time I'd go back out there, I'd just get right back into the same habits, the same hangups, use again. That was my whole goal, was just to play this off and then let the judge put me back out there.
Mhm.
So 13 felonies and 6 years later, it's taken really this program of recovery for me to realize all this. But I remember the point of absolute desperation was the last time I went in front of the judge, and she looked me in the face and she said, "Mr. Wilson, if you catch one more felony charge, I'm giving you your time." And at that point in time, I knew that because of the mental health court, because of the sentence that they had already prescribed for me, it was a 6 year nonviolent, and I'd already done time before, so the time didn't scare me. Um, she said that I'm giving you your time, and I said okay, and I knew she was going to put me right back out on the street. And so, within I think within 2 hours of walking out of jail, I was in another stolen vehicle, and not 2 or 3 hours after that, I was right back into the drugs, and another 24 hours later, I had another stolen vehicle that I used to pay for a hotel room just so I could perpetuate this insanity. Um, but and I don't know exactly when it happened, but the switch happened towards the end of that week. I had been out about 5 days out of jail. And again, this was my sixth time through jail in a year and a half. And it was, I remember because my sobriety, I call my sobriety date February 10th of 2021. And that was the night that I finally got picked up and got arrested at that point of desperation. But something in me that night changed. Um, I couldn't look myself in the mirror. I couldn't stand to be around myself. It was everything that I looked around and I saw, the people, the play was just, it was sickening. And something happened, and it kept playing on loop, like it was on a loop in my mind. What the judge said to me, that if I caught one more case, she was going to put me in prison. And I looked at one of the guys that was there, and I told him, I said, I'm gone, I'm leaving. And he looked at me, he said, "What are you talking about?" And I said, I'm going to catch a case. And he said, "You're absolutely crazy." And I said, "Well, maybe, but I'm done. I'm done with this." I broke down, and I left the motel, and I jumped in another stolen vehicle that I had stolen from that hotel that I stayed in, um, and went out. It was freezing rain. It was cold. The truck ran out of gas, and I was just at this point that I was like, I had no other choice. I didn't see rehab. I didn't see detox, anything fast enough. Any other options. So basically, what I did is I went and I jumped in another car, and I popped the column just like I would any others, but because it was cold, I was freezing, and I started the car and I sat there in that parking lot and I waited. All I would have had to do was put the car in drive and drive away, but I waited for the owners of that vehicle to come out and find me in the vehicle to call the police on me, and I waited for the police to get there.
Wow.
That night, I caught three more felonies. I caught an assault and battery with a dangerous weapon, burglary, two of an automobile, and burglary. And when the police finally showed up, I remember this distinctly. I asked him if his body cam was on, and he said yes it is. And I said, okay, good. I am absolutely 100%. I did this. I broke into this vehicle. I put it on record that I wanted him to know that this was me surrendering, and that's exactly what it took, was that ultimate surrender, that point of desperation where I knew that I was absolutely done, and it was time for a change. And so that was my moment of surrender, and that's why I call my sobriety date February 10th, 2021, because that was the day that I finally just I surrendered. It was more than surrendering to the police. It
Right.
was surrendering to my higher. It was surrendering to my higher power,
Wow.
and that's yeah. So the judge did exactly what she said she was going to do. She gave me that 6 year nonviolent. Um, and by this time, I was in jail a few weeks, and I'd talked to my family, I'd talked to my kids, and I told them kind of what I was looking at. Because, like I said, I knew I had done time before. I knew that I could do time. I could go lay down. I could get my health back in order. I could get my head right. And little did I know, the yard that I went to. Now, when I went to the yard, we were still on COVID lockdown at the time, and so it was really limited movement. But when they finally let the yard up and opened the yard back up to full movement, there was a guy that I'd been talking to. He showed up on the yard shortly after I got there, and of course, we'd been talking about some church services and a couple of pastors that I really got into listening to. And he said to me one night, he said, "Hey man, why don't you go to a meeting with me?" And of course, in my mind, I'm like, "Sure, I'll go with you to support him, right?"
Oh, so
Because at
did
that point,
that was something I was going to ask you, Daniel. So they did have
sure,
meetings while you were in prison?
yes, ma'am.
Really? So you
The
never had
chaplain
any
there,
interest
yep,
in going to them or anything like that until this time?
not once, not once. But like I said, that guy asked me if I wanted to go to a meeting, and I said, sure, I'll go with you because I thought I was supporting him.
Right.
And like I said, little did I know AA got me. So 2 years, a little over 2 years, uh, about 2.5 years, I attended every meeting that they had. We had four meetings a week, two AA meetings, two NA meetings, one big book study, one 12-step study, and then the two NA meetings a week. And then towards the last, I think, 4 or 5 months of my incarceration there at the yard, the chaplain had actually set up with the warden to do an outside Zoom meeting with her home group to have a Zoom meeting brought in. And so really I was doing 5 meetings a week when I walked out the gates. The Fellowship of Alcoholics Anonymous, the program of action and good sponsorship absolutely 100% saved my life. It changed me in such a way that I'll never be able to put accurate words to. There's so many things that it changed in my life, and it's still working today. Does that mean I have great days every day? No, but I know that I don't have to drink, and I know I don't have to use, and I know I can face life on life's terms. I have a good support system around me. I live in a sober living house in Norman, Oklahoma. These guys are absolutely awesome. My sponsor Ryan, if you listen to this, thank you so much. My home group, Phoenix group, man, you guys are awesome.
So now, for people
You
who
know,
don't, hey Daniel, for people who don't know what sober living is, you said you live in a sober living house. Tell the listeners what a
yes.
sober living house is.
Well, now I'm in a sober living house that's run by Oxford House. It's a national uh, sober living house organization. It's a nonprofit 501c organization that really reaches out to addicts and alcoholics, and when they're in an active recovery program. So what that looks like for me is, it's a. I mean, I'm in a 7 bedroom house. All of the bills are paid. They pay for even down to the toilet paper, paper towels, laundry soap, and everything. It's $125 a week for me, so $500 a month isn't bad. I can, they do require us to make a certain amount of meetings a week. We do have a curfew. We do have to have a job, or either have a job or volunteer in the community 25 hours a month. So we do have accountability. We've got
Mm.
chore night. We've got things like this that we're expected to uphold. But you know, the thing that I've started to realize is all of these things are what normal society does on a regular basis. And so it's amazing to me to have this opportunity and to know that there are places like this out there that can help people in a position that I used to be in and that I'm in now.
Mm-hmm.
If the program of Alcoholics Anonymous and Narcotics Anonymous, Oxford House, and all these things work for a guy like me, I know it can work for other people.
Mm. Mm.
So that, I mean, absolutely. My life has changed drastically for the better. I was saying, I've got a good support system. I have people that just out of the blue call me during the day and ask me how I'm doing. 3 years ago, I had people blocking my number because they didn't want to hear from me, and now I have people reaching out to me just to check and see how my day is. And that's that's one of the biggest blessings that I could ever ask for, is to be able to have an impact like that. In not only in my community but in my home, in my home group, with my sponsor and the guys that I sponsor too, and it makes all the difference in the world.
You mentioned that you had kids.
I do, yeah. I've got 4 kids,
Oh,
three
okay.
boys and a girl. Yeah. My oldest is 31, and my youngest is 26. 3 boys and a girl. They're awesome. They went through it too. And that's one thing that I've noticed, and that I've actually had to come to realize, is that you know, um, regardless of the fact that I'm an addict and alcoholic, they were victims in that scenario. That whether and not to say that it was it wasn't a violent victim. That's not my point. But my point is I wasn't there. I wasn't present in the moment for them. When when they needed me.
Mm-hmm.
Whether it was because I was involved in trying to find my next drink or my next drug, or whether I was in prison or just not there. Um, and we talk about step 8 and 9, the amends. And those things are sometimes we're never going to be able to make those amends. But the one thing that one of my kids, and this is one of the coolest things ever too. My middle son, his sobriety date is 20 days after mine. Uh,
Really? Oh, that's
yes,
amazing.
yeah.
Good for him.
So which is really really cool to know, because I think seeing me go through a lot of that, even to the point of he come to visit me in prison when he was younger. My dad would bring him up there to see me, and and I always tried to express to him, like, you don't need to do this, you don't need to do this, but those are just words. He was seeing
Right.
my actions. Words don't mean a thing unless you can back it up with action.
Mm-hmm.
And but to see the progress he's made, is such a cool thing for me to see. But he told me one night, I was trying to do some amends, and I called him on the phone before I got released from prison. I called him on the phone one night and I said, "Hey, listen, this is what I'm trying to do, and I just wanted to let you know that, I can't say sorry because sorry's been said 1,000 times. But I really want to make things right, what he said to me, he said, Dad, he goes, I know you can do better. He goes, I know you're trying, and I can hear it in your voice, and I can see it in your, in what you're trying to do. Um, he said, but what I really need you to do is just make a living amends. And I didn't know exactly what that meant. I mean, I kind of did, but I didn't know what that meant. But what I see now is the living amends that I can make is just to, number one, keep doing the right thing. And even if it's not directly related to him or a relationship between him and I, it's reaching out to others, man. It's
Mm-hmm.
bringing this message to other people that are still suffering, because there's a lot of people out there suffering. I know you see it and I see it every day in the
Mm-hmm.
world. And a lot of times it breaks my heart to see it, because sometimes some people we're never going to be able to reach, and that, it does, it breaks my heart. So, but I'll never stop trying. I reach out to people almost on a daily basis to, see where they're at, or I've noticed if I don't if I'm not reaching out to people on a daily basis, then I start to get in my head.
Mm.
And, and so I have to stay out of there as much as possible, because this is a bad neighborhood for me to be in, especially after dark.
Right.
And so, yeah, and so that's kind of where I'm at with that. If I can make a difference in one person's life, then this program has done exactly what it's needed to do for me.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, don't get me wrong, I'd like it to be more, but if I can just make a big difference in one person's life, then I feel my goal has been achieved.
Well, I'm so happy that you mentioned that there were recovery meetings while you were inside prison. I've got a couple of friends, and I'll be honest, I haven't done that type of service work, but I have some friends that do, and it just. At first, before you mentioned it, I thought, oh my gosh, were there not any type of, I just can't imagine being locked up and not having any type of a solution like that to at least turn to once you're ready. I just can't. Oh my gosh, that would just be hell. So yeah, God bless those people that are taking meetings inside jails and prisons and what have you. And carrying that message. I mean, that's just, it's one thing for me to get out, here behind this microphone and carry a message. I mean, that's, but those are the true soldiers, that are just
Sure.
really doing the heavy lifting. And so God bless them.
Well, I have to give credit to the chaplain at the facility that I was at. Uh, you know, she's been doing it for 14 years at that facility. Um, and she has 36 years sober. I mean, she is in it to win it. And I've told her time and time again. I actually keep in contact with her even now on the streets. I call every couple of weeks just to say hi and let her know how I'm doing,
Oh.
because there's a lot of people that it's kind of discouraging sometimes at some of those meetings, like, because you see some of those guys come in, just for the coffee, because it's not the coffee off the canteen, it's brewed coffee, and so some of them guys come in just for a cup of coffee, or some of them guys come in just for the AC or to get off their units for a little while, and that's fine. We say come in and stay for the message,
Mm-hmm.
stay for the message and stay till the miracle happens, but you know, it so I've kind of had to push that discouragement aside and just let the program work for itself. But our chaplain she is such an amazing person. Um, and that, I don't think the folks there realize the blessing that they have sitting in that office, because of the volunteer work she does. The night she stays until 8 and 9 o'clock for the meetings and the Zoom meetings and stuff, she's not on the clock. She's doing that voluntarily. You know,
Wow.
she and the way she advocates to the staff and things at the prison, is just it's something you don't see very often. But you're right, the volunteers that bring the message in too, that they're doing that on their time too.
Mm-hmm.
And but it just goes to show what this program really means. Um, in carrying the message, that 12 step work.
Mm-hmm.
Having had a spiritual awakening, we tried to carry this message to other alcoholics and practice these principles in all our affairs. That's what we have to do. That's that program of action that works through us. And to be able to do that is something that I've actually started to kind of look into that too, working with some Bridge the Gap folks for AA here in this area, bringing meetings into a couple of the facilities that are around this area. We've got an outreach program in my home group that does that. So I'm looking at joining that because I knew what the Bridge the Gap folks and the volunteers that were bringing the message into prison did for me.
Right.
One of my sponsors was an outside volunteer. He lived in Mena, Arkansas, but he's from the Oklahoma City area, and such a cool guy. It it never really made sense to me why somebody would do that until I started doing the work and realizing that it wasn't just for the people that they're working with; it was for them too.
Right.
And that's such a profound idea that, you know, I like a couple of the guys I sponsor. That's exactly what I tell them. That, even if you don't get anything out of this, I am.
Well, and
And
you have people come in the rooms that and that are newbies, and you share your phone number and what have you, which I think is you should get their phone number because it's anyway. But and it's
yes,
one of those
yes,
things that it's like you see them and they've relapsed or whatever, and it's like, why didn't you call? It's like, well, I didn't want to bother you. It's like, you don't understand. I don't stay
yeah,
sober unless you bother me. Right? I mean,
yeah,
I can't keep this unless I give it away to you. You know what I'm talking about? Just anybody that
yep,
we have the privilege of carrying the message to. I don't
yes,
stay sober if I can't give this away. So please inconvenience me, right? It's like I need you to
yes,
inconvenience me so that because as soon as I'm talking to you about your 4-step, guess what I'm thinking in the back of my head? Oh, maybe I forgot someone, or maybe it's just that's the magic of this program. It just one alcoholic helping another one is just, and again, I could get all up in my feels, but I just believe, my higher power, who I choose to call God, I think that's how he intended us to be on this planet. To be there for one another and support one another, and it's a beautiful thing.
it really is. That's where I get a lot of my relief from is getting those calls from those guys. Because left to my own devices, I've always said it like this: sobriety is more than just not drinking or using.
Mm-hmm.
Um, there's abstinence and then there's sobriety, and this is the way I look at it. Sobriety is more of an emotional and mental state than anything for me. Now, does that say I drink and use? No, absolutely not, because that would put me right back into my emotional instability. That would put
Mm-hmm.
me back into that insanity that I've worked really hard to get out of. And so, being able to be put back at peace and, like the 9 step promises talk about, we'll know a new peace and a new freedom,
Mm-hmm.
and it's absolutely true. But when I'm reaching out to others or when I'm talking to others, I'm out of my head. I'm not in my head. And again, I've already said, this is a bad place for me to be.
Right. Right.
So, it, just that little bit of reaching out keeps me out of my own stuff, just, even if it's for a few minutes. But then you're right too. It kind of makes us reflect back on ourselves and go,
Mm-hmm.
hey, what did I miss?
Mm-hmm.
Or because obviously I wasn't ever able to figure it out for myself, and now I'm relying on my sponsor to figure things out for me, and because that's what we do.
Mm-hmm.
And so, if I'm able to do that for somebody else, then again, it keeps me out of my head.
Well, and I recently had the debate with, and not really a debate, but a discussion on the difference between, and I think we're saying the exact same thing, as far as abstinence versus sobriety, but even more so, to me, sobriety versus recovery, right?
Yeah, yeah, you're right.
Sobriety to me is not drinking, right? I'm
Mhm.
sober means I do not have a drug or drink in my body. Sober, clean, same
Yep,
thing. I hate it when people try to
yep,
distinguish the difference between drugs and alcohol. There is no
yeah,
difference
yeah,
whatsoever. Don't fool yourself. There is no bullshit thing called California sober. There's not. That's like being kind of pregnant. You're either sober or you're not. But my dad was sober for 37 years and was one of the most miserable people on the planet, right? Because he was
yeah,
inside his head running around by himself all the time. Whereas in recovery, that's when we get out of self. We get out of self and into other people, and working the program. That to me that's my goal. I don't want to just be sober. I would literally eat a bullet if I were just sober. I need to be in recovery. Now, I know our literature says we have recovered, which yes, I have.
Yeah.
But I still can go inside that neighborhood after dark by myself, and it's not a safe place to be. And I start doing crazy things, start saying crazy things, and I end up being selfish and self-centered. And so to me, I have to recover again, right? Not completely, but you know what I'm saying.
Yes.
It's one of those things
Yep.
where I get to do this for the rest of my life. I get to go into a room of people that know exactly how I feel. And the mirror that is their eyes that is looking at me isn't going to change. If I tell them something I did terribly, they're not going to want to feel the need to chastise me, or they're just, going to try to genuinely help me. I get to have that no matter anywhere in the world, right? Anywhere in the world, we can go and find our people. What a community.
Yeah.
I mean, my husband is actually, there are times where Rick will actually say, I wish I had somewhere to go. I wish I had a room to go down and just, and just release everything and get people that genuinely want to help and care and that I've given the authority to look at me and go, are you being a little selfish right there? Or, what, have you thought about it that way? And me not want to, deck him or what have you. But he doesn't have that type of and I'm like, well, always come to our side and become an alcoholic or something. But anyway, it's the community in the program. It's just beautiful. It's beautiful the way that it works.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that was one of the biggest things, because I'd said earlier, the first time I was led to AA by a probation officer, and I wasn't ready.
Mm-hmm.
And the closest I got was to the front door. Number one, my mind told me that I didn't need it, I didn't have a problem. But then again, I'm like, and also in that same mindset, I was like, why do I need to go into a room full of drunks? That doesn't make sense.
Mm-hmm.
And so, that's just how, and unfortunately, that's how a lot of people look at our program. It's like, oh, they're just a bunch of drunks in there.
Mm-hmm.
And you know what? You're right. And I'm a grateful recovering drunk.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? Because of that, because we can walk into the room, and regardless of the background we have, or, we talked about this last, we were talking about Tradition 10 last night, but regardless of any background we have, or political affiliation, or religious affiliation, or whatever, that gets left at the door.
Right.
And we walk in, and we're in a room full of people that know where, for the most part, that know where we are, that know where we've been, that know the pain and the suffering that we've caused not only ourselves, but everybody else around us.
And we're equals.
And,
complete equals.
Yes, yeah. It's a genuine love. I mean, there's no other way to explain it. And it's the only regret I have would have been not picking up the AA program when that probation officer told me to a long time ago.
But you know what? It happened. You know as well as I do. It happened exactly the way it was supposed to happen. To where you could be of maximum service to your fellows. It happened exactly the way it happened. Yeah. And again, it's so cool to sit. Like I was at my home group meeting today at noon, and we've got the person who who rides a bike or pushes a shopping cart up to the church. We're on the third floor of a local church. And we've got the attorney or the doctor across the town that is sitting at the same exact table, drinking out of the same exact coffee cups, and talking about the same exact problems. Problems. It's just such all of the bullshit barriers that we as human beings, spiritually sick human beings. I think everybody's spiritually sick, but anyway,
I agree.
All of the barriers that we put up, and the judgments, and all of that, just like with the political and all the stuff you're talking about, the outside issues, we leave them at the door. and we're just a bunch of people that just want healing. And what's even more beautiful, we don't want it just for ourselves. We want it for that person sitting across from us, or that new person that comes in that just can't stop crying, right? Yeah. I love
we,
it.
we know that we know that newcomer is the most important person at the meeting. You know, and we figured out that this is a life and death situation for us. You know what I mean? It, you know, my chaplain used to say, we've got alcoholic death or spiritual life. Well, how bad can alcoholic death be? And that was the way we looked at it when we were in the grips of our addiction or alcoholism. How bad can it be?
Or we hoped for it. God,
So,
dog, I hoped
yeah.
for it. Bring
yes,
it.
yeah,
Bring it.
yeah,
It would have been a
yeah,
relief.
yes, yep.
I'm just saying.
Yep, I've been there. I've been there too. I had two suicide attempts, and thankful that the same son I was talking about that's got 20 days sobriety less than me. He was one of the reasons that I'm still here. He took the bolt out of the rifle, before I was able to get back to it because I was over it. I was done, and I'm so grateful that that's the case. But because it did lead me to the point I'm at now, and to the to the emotional, not only substance recovery, but the emotional recovery too.
Emotional sobriety. So
I've been able to
tell me about that. Tell me
yeah,
about it. What? And again, we believe it or not, it's actually really cool because we have a lot of non-alcoholic addicts that listen to the show. So explain, what is emotional sobriety? What is that to you?
so emotional sobriety, like I was saying earlier, like a lot of my substance abuse and alcoholism was really stemmed from past trauma, was early, I would say early childhood trauma. One part of that I didn't throw in was, at about 4 years old, I think my birth mother, and I will call her that for obvious reasons in a second. My birth mother had called my dad and said, "Hey, do you want Dan for the weekend?" And he said, "Absolutely." And I'm still not sure what's taking her so long because she never showed back up.
Mm.
But so that being said, there was a lot of early childhood trauma and a lot of acceptance issues and abandonment issues that were never dealt with. And whether I was sober, drinking, using, whatever, those all things played a part in every bit of it.
Mm-hmm.
And so after after the abstinence stage and stopping drinking, we're getting out of the mental obsession and the phenomenon of craving, right? We're getting out of that. Okay, so now we have to figure out what those traumas are, and as we go through the steps. So now we're in, but by that time we're in, step 4, step 5. We're going through these things with our sponsor, and we're looking for these patterns, and we find out, okay, well, where are my fears, and where was I dishonest and selfish? And so a lot of my fears are based in exactly that, were those past childhood traumas of either, was it me? What was wrong with me? What did I do wrong? Why are people not liking me? You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
And so now I figure out a way to make them like me or to make them accept me. And so that drove me to those substances that those people were doing. So now that I'm out of that, I can deal, I can start to put put those things where they belong and understand that it's not about me pleasing me and it's not about me pleasing others, but it's about me pleasing God.
Mm.
And so when I started to be able to do that, that's when I started finding emotional sobriety, where I don't have to rely on others for acceptance. I don't have to worry about others abandoning me because it's going to happen.
Mm-hmm.
Why let that drive me? Because that was essentially what it was. I was letting those fears and that anxiety drive my actions into bad situations or bad habits or bad decisions. And so when I was able to put those really into perspective and go, you know what, I got to stop letting this fear and letting this anxiety control me, and because that's just putting the keys to the car in somebody else's hands when I start doing that.
Mm-hmm.
So, and that's letting them drive me. That's letting them live rent free in my head. And so then I start making bad decisions. I start, let's just, for instance, I may start slipping and going to meetings or start having, bad thoughts and things like that. And so I can't allow that to happen anymore. But being able to realize the triggers was the biggest part for me to be able to say, okay, wait a minute. Now I have to step back and look at this and why am I feeling this way? about whatever that social situation is, because to be blunt, I haven't been out of prison that long. So
Mm-hmm.
the dynamic in there, the dynamic behind the fence was a lot different than what it is here. There's a lot of different social situations that engaging in now. There's a lot of different, I mean, there was different personality types in there too, obviously, but there's a lot of different personality types out here on the street. And so without that emotional sobriety, I wouldn't know how to deal with people, not only life on life terms, but people on people's terms.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a quote that I heard that it's, we have to meet people where they're at and not expect them to meet us where we're at. And so if I start living my life as if, like the book talks about the actor in a play, right? If everything would go his way, the show would come off just fine.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, well, that's that ego talking. That's that self-centered, that selfish and self-centeredness, thinking that, well, if they would only do this, then I would be okay. Well, there we go back to the emotional instability again. And so, really, to be able to put that into place and put God first, put God in the middle of all of our situations and let Him lead, then we're going to be okay.
Well,
That
and even
doesn't mean I don't have bad days.
right. Well, and even, meeting someone where they are, that's one thing, but there's a lot of times too, Dan, that it's one of those things that maybe I just need to leave them where they are and I be where I am. Maybe there's
Yes.
maybe
Yeah.
there's a situation where we don't have to meet up. You know what I mean? People trying
Yeah.
to force, square pegs into round holes kind of things. It's like but and that's
Yeah.
where you can separate with love, meaning you can not have just and it's come to, like, for instance, even family and stuff. So if someone is toxic in your life and they're doing their thing, you don't have to go where they are. You can pray for them, but you can also protect yourself from them. And with love and respect, and you pray for them everything you're praying for yourself. But sometimes we just need to give them space to be who they are, and we do our thing and look for the next person that we can help.
Yes. Yep. Yeah. If I was, in because, and I've also read this somewhere, like, when we start sponsoring people and we start reaching out, if you know it would be easy to get discouraged when one falls off,
Mm.
or or it just doesn't take with that person. So it would be easy for a sponsor to get discouraged in that aspect. But the more times you do it, it get number one, it gets easier, but then you also have to realize that that person may just not be ready.
There you have it.
You
See,
know,
because when we do as a sponsor, because I know what you're talking about, because I refused to sponsor for the first 8 years of my sobriety. I mean, I just was
yeah,
like, nope, don't need to do that. I'll do all these things, but I don't need to do that. And my sponsor finally, because I've had the same sponsor, thank you God, since March 14th, 2012. But she looked at me and she said,
right.
you're being a real selfish butt right now. And I said, what are you talking about? And she said, what in you makes you think that you're going to screw someone up? Do you really think you have that much power? And I thought, oh crap. I didn't think of it like this. She said, it's not up to you to get someone sober. You can't get you sober. So you sure the hell can't get someone else sober. That's God's job. All you
Right.
have to do is be willing to be used.
Yeah.
Right?
Yes.
I'm
Yes.
just
That's exactly right.
I'm not even the ink in the pen. I'm just the little the tubey thing that holds the ink. That's all I am in a
Yeah.
sponsee situation. I just ask God to use me to, the minute I start thinking that I can help someone, ooh, that someone needs to run from me, because I ain't got no business helping nobody. It's God that
That's
uses
right.
me to reach someone, you know.
Yeah. It's basically it's laying that spiritual toolkit at their feet
Right.
that was laid at our feet for us to pick
And
up.
show them how we
And that's
use those tools. Mm-hmm.
yes, yeah, absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what I like about that's what I like about our program is it really I haven't found yet, and I'm sure there are, but I haven't found yet um, too many people that if you go to and go, hey, how do you go through the steps? They're all going to show you the same way.
Mm-hmm.
You're going to do the same things. You're going to do your step work. You're going to do your writings. You're going to do your readings, and it's usually pretty close to the same. It's,
Mm-hmm.
it's a pretty tight program, and that's what I like about it. So it's not something that I have to manufacture or, or I have to, come up with
Reinvent
some
the wheel. Nope.
wild, yeah, yeah. I don't have to do that. I just, I can show them a page to turn to in the book and go, here, you do this, grab a
Right.
highlighter and let's do some writing. You know
Well,
what I'm
and
saying? And it's,
generally, I'll get with another woman, and it's one of those things that we're gonna read through this, and when they write something down, we're gonna write it down, or when they pray something, we're gonna
yeah,
pray it. We're just gonna simply follow
yes,
something that has worked for 88 years now. Something
yes,
there
yeah,
might be something to it to actually follow it the way that it was written.
yes.
It's really simple. We just there's
Millions
yeah.
of people.
I've seen
Yeah,
so many people try to decorate it, and it's like, no, okay, what is this that we say in the rooms? Keep it simple, stupid. It's like, no,
yep,
it's already written down literally in black and white. And just
yep,
it's a follow the directions, right? Because before I came
yes,
into the
yeah.
rooms, I didn't follow anyone's direction. I was, yeah, that
Nope.
was friggin' Tasmanian devil out there. Um, but yeah, so tell me, how do you start your day every day?
Usually the beginning of my day looks like this. I'll get up, I'll make my bed, because I heard somebody very, very, very influential in my life tell me the best way to change the world, the simplest way to change the world is to make your bed every morning.
Have you heard that
So I
speech?
have
Hang on
stuck
a
by
second.
that.
Have you heard that speech? It was oh gosh. Okay, so I challenge you, Dan. Google graduation speech, make your bed. Google that and listen to that guy.
Okay.
Oh man, it's
I
so
sure will.
good. Yeah, it's so good. But his premise behind that was, if you've done that, you've at least, if nothing else goes right the rest of the day, you have accomplished something and completed something that you were supposed to do. At least you have that thing.
Yes.
Yeah, it's beautiful. So
Yep.
I'm sorry. You make your bed.
No, that's fine. So I make my bed. I take a few minutes just to, I, step 11, continue through prayer and meditation. That's usually what that looks like. I give myself, 5, maybe 10 minutes just to meditate, to just be in the moment,
Mm-hmm.
to breathe, just to think of thoughts of gratitude. What am I thankful for today? What are some things? And it can be the simplest things. I mean, it can be, uh, especially my first couple of days here. I'd go out in the backyard and I would do my little meditation time, and I would see rabbits in the yard. Okay, and that was enough for me to be grateful for, because I, just stepped out of prison, and being able to sit in a backyard and watch these rabbits jump around the
Oh,
yard.
I
I know it
bet.
sounds simple,
No,
but
that's
man, that is something
wonderful.
to be grateful for. But just to know that, so that's what it looks like. I make my bed, I meditate for a few minutes, I pray, and I don't, not up walking around with my coffee cup in my hand, or with the TV on. I mean, I'm on my knees praying, and because that's important. That's what, my sponsor now and every other sponsor before me said: "Yeah, on your knees praying."
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
It's that daily surrender.
Mm-hmm.
Um, it's the daily reflection that I am an alcoholic, I am an addict. That, you know what I'm saying, and my life has become unmanageable.
Right.
And so, what do I do about it? I have to surrender every morning. And then, after that, then that's when I kind of get my day started. But I'm always usually trying to keep that gratitude in my mind. Um, and there's been times, and that's why I say usually that's my morning. There have been times where, I've skimped on the meditation, or I've gotten up in a rush and haven't hit my knees to pray. And it's those days that I see the most turmoil.
Mm.
Whether it's me being in my head, or just something like I'm late because I ride the bus and to get to work and things like that. So I'm late to the bus, or I'll forget something at home. And so it causes me a little bit of turmoil that I could have easily just put to the side, and done my meditation, done my morning prayer, and then went from there. I step work myself every morning. and that's basically what I have to do to even make my day manageable. Because I can't do it on my own. I need help, and
Mm-hmm.
there's only one that can do that. You know what I'm
Mm-hmm.
saying?
So what
May
has
you find that now.
Amen to that. Well, and you know what? I was listening to it. Of course, we still call them speaker tapes, and that you made me think of something, Dan, when you said that. That one is God, may you find Him, and it's like, where do you
Yes.
think He is? He is where, or whatever you choose to call your higher power, is where we usually aren't. Which is, where do
Yes.
you find Him? Now.
Yes.
I'm usually not in the now. I'm in yesterday when
Right.
someone made me mad, or I'm in, oh gosh, what am I have to do tomorrow? What's happening at 6 o'clock? I'm hardly ever. May you find Him now. Now
Right.
is where
I've,
he
I've
is. Where
never.
he is.
That's awesome. I've
I
never
know,
I've never heard
right?
it put like that.
Yeah,
That's awesome.
yeah.
We used to say, because I know there's a lot with the fears and anxieties, and
Mm-hmm.
on this and on the simplest level, as humans, we, we we're governed by fight or flight, okay, fight or flight, and that's what we're governed by. And so, it's the pain and pleasure. And so we found that, I know me as an alcoholic, I've found that it was easier for me to find pleasure in a bottle than it was to deal with the pain as it is.
Mm-hmm.
And so, but then what happens with that is not dealing with the pain. Then it starts getting pushed to yesterday and the day before that and the day before that. And now I'm stuck in a loop of fear because now I know what pain is, and I'm always fearful of that pain coming back to the forefront,
Mm-hmm.
or the anxiety that it is going to be coming. And so you're right. So when I'm in the now, that I'm not focused on yesterday or tomorrow.
Mm-hmm.
And so, and that's why the 24-hour thing is the best. Is that 24 hours is the best day we can have.
Well, and
You
look at
know,
look at our prayer that most meetings end with. Give us this day.
yeah,
Not
this
give us
day,
this
yeah,
yesterday, not give us
yep,
this tomorrow. Give us this
right,
day. He not only says it once, our daily bread, not our monthly, not our
yes,
weekly, not our, it's give us this day. And he only promises us that, every 24 hours. That's all we're given. And at least in my childish mind, that's just, this is what I'm giving you. And this, that same speaker, that's what I was going to say. That same speaker was talking about depression and anxiety. And I'm fully aware, do not send me messages. I'm fully aware there are chemical imbalances that cause, yes, okay, I get that. For most people, depression is feeling the lack of power for what's happened in the past, a lack of control, right? That you
mm-hmm,
didn't have control over
yep,
things that happened in the past. And anxiety is fear of not being able to control something in the future.
yes,
Wow. I mean, when he
yes.
put it that way, I'm like, oh crap. Yeah, that's about sums it up. Because if I'm
It
depressed,
it does.
I'm thinking about something that has happened that I didn't have any control over. Otherwise, it would have been different, right? Or
Yep.
anxiety, I'm
It's a,
fearing what's going to be happening, and 99.999% of the time, I don't have control over what's going to happen anyway.
yeah, that's
You
the
know?
actor in the actor in the play again.
Yeah, right?
Yep, the actor in the play. Yeah, for
Mm-hmm.
sure.
And that's a
Um,
lot to carry around.
and
What was the biggest thing that was a
it is.
surprise to you once you got into recovery?
Um, the biggest surprise to me once I got into it, honestly, man, just the way that I can connect with people again, or let me rephrase that, the way people are willing to connect with me.
Mm,
For so long, in my active addiction and alcoholism, I had drove so many people away that I thought that was the norm. You know
mm-hmm.
what I mean? Leaving that devastation, destruction, the path a mile wide. I literally I had alienated everybody and everything around me, and so the willingness for people to want to be a part of what I'm doing, or to want to be like those phone calls that I get, or the text messages throughout the day that I get, just asking me how I'm doing. That is surprising to me
Mm.
because I'm not used to that. I'm used to people not wanting to talk to me
Right.
and not wanting to be around me. And I think that's the biggest surprise for me is just that willingness for people, or for me to realize that willingness in people, to actually want to be a part of my life.
Mm, that's beautiful. I'm so grateful that you came on here with me today. I really am, and I ain't your mama, but I'm so proud of you. I mean, go you. I mean,
Well,
this is one of those things that I think that what I know about recovery, and I've got a little bit of time at this. It just gets better and better. It just gets better and better.
I think you're right on that. I think you're right. I'm seeing it too.
Well,
It gets better and better, and it gets easier and easier. So
that's right. That's right. Yeah, life is still going to
absolutely,
happen, but at least now we have a
yep,
solution
yes.
to cease that insanity. Thank you so much. God bless you. You're in my prayers. I'm so grateful to know you.
Well, thank you very much for the opportunity. And if this hits just one person, then I think my job is done.
Amen.
So
Amen.
I so appreciate the opportunity. Thank you very much.
You're welcome. Thank you for listening to the Purpose Driven Sobriety podcast. Thanks for listening to Purpose Driven Sobriety. Keep coming back.
This has been a Rogue Media Network production.